Thank you. Hi, everyone. Yeah, if I look like I'm going to have a minor heart attack, it's because I'm going to have a minor heart attack. Yeah, it's really, really, really exciting to be here. This is probably one of the most amazing places that I've ever had the privilege of speaking, so thank you so much. And yeah, I had an interesting conversation yesterday with Ryan, one of the other speakers. Where are you, bro? Can't see you. But like, yeah, he said, yeah, the minute you step on the stage, you're an international speaker, so don't fuck it up. Okay, so I'll do my absolute level best not to fuck it up. Okay, so extreme leadership. Yeah, this is something that's been really close to my heart for a very long time. So I've been around software development and people, and working with people for about 25 years. But I've been in agile transformation type of environment for about 10 years. And this is basically the distillation of some ideas that I've been bouncing off the team that I'm currently working with, which are, I mean, the most amazing people imaginable. We have got the privilege of having the most amazing person leading us. And a lot of the examples and a lot of the lessons that I'm going to share with you guys, I can see in her. Yeah, she's definitely an inspirational leader and someone that I use as a very, very, very good example. So yeah, you can see I've got a little subtitle there, Catalysts of Curiosity, or Catalysts for Curiosity. I think as a leader, this is one of the things that you've really got to take to heart. If you can create an environment where people can become curious, you take one very important thing off the table, and that's fear. If people can become curious, fear tends to die down or tends to go away, and then you start to get into really, really exciting places. Okay. A little bit about me. Yeah, so enterprise agile coach, raconteur, photographer, rogue, crash test dummy. Yeah, I like to try things. So when I joined Capitec Bank, where I'm working at the moment, they did a personality test, and the one thing that popped up was my likelihood to follow rules is 0. They still hired me, so it's on them if I don't follow any of their rules. So yeah, also raconteur, my 14-year-old, he's dyslexic, so reading not so great. He was like a raccoon. You're like, no, I'm not a raccoon. A storyteller. Okay, yeah, if you guys are on Twitter, give me a follow at GravWorks. Okay, so things I'm going to chat about. Oh, sorry, let me go back there. Just one thing I want to just highlight. So certifications. Certifications have really become this big thing, people running around chasing them. So yeah, I've deliberately put up some of mine. I really like what the fuck and laughing my ass off. Certifications are just the beginning of your journey. Once you're certified, that's when it starts. You actually really start to really learn when you get immersed in an environment and you start working with people and start making really, really cool mistakes. That's when you start learning. Okay. So what I'm going to chat about, first of all, just like to set the stage, like where we're at the moment and what we're playing with, the environments that we're playing with. So agility and transformation, what does that look like? And what are the things that you could start to see and start to experiment and start to change where you can really start to get a strong people focus and start to liberate your leaders? And then talk about like some of the aspects of leadership itself. And then this whole curiosity and culture. I think if we can create a culture where there's this thread of curiosity where people can really just explore and they're free to make glorious mistakes, then I think you're really in a good space. And then one very, very important ingredient that I'll get to near the end of the talk. Okay, so agility and transformation. So I'm going to start off with just being a little bit provocative. I was going to do it myself, but I think Heidi Klum does it a little bit better. Yeah, so provocative, yeah. So I mean, like if you're in a transformative company, a transformative organization, you need to start being a little bit provocative, poking sticks at things, not taking things for granted, and most certainly challenging the status quo. So I found this quote, which I thought was, I mean, absolutely, it just hit the nail on the head. You'll see a lot of the concepts that I'm going to chat about are how do we turn things around? How do we turn things upside down? Get people into a space where they are uncomfortable. Yeah, so you want to take the system, you want to turn it upside down. This is revolution. Okay. So when we talk about agility, and like I know we had a, I think it was Richard yesterday who chatted about agile and like how that word becomes, it's become overused and like it's become slightly diluted. I prefer using agility. It's a better trait. And like the first thing that I noticed was, so like I said, I've been in transformative environments for about 10 years. And I've noticed that agility really forms like a web. It doesn't form like a pyramid. You think about a pyramid or a deep hierarchy, that's quite rigid. And that's not very agile at all. We take a look at those things. The one on the left here, the network, we're looking at a system which is around consent, collaboration, and the creation of a vision that unites people. On the other side, we're looking at something that tends to be dictatorial. So I'm your boss, I'm your manager, I'll tell you what to do, or I'll tell these teams what to do. I'll set the pace and things like that, and governance. And I say control there, but it really is the illusion of control, because you're not really in control at any point in time. I think once you get that off the table, you're in a very good space. I see these two things as being stable and being managed. Now, the network, when I say stable, I don't mean static by any stretch of the imagination. It's definitely not static, but it is stable. It definitely flexes and contracts. It's like a muscle. It's like an organism. And I think if you get into a space where you start looking at your organization more as an organism rather than an organization, I think this is a happy space, because you've got a lot of flexibility then, things that you can work with, things that you can pivot on and change direction. So managed versus stable, what do I mean by that? Okay, so this first one over here, you can see it's quite rigid. There are structures that's structured, standard operating procedures, and it's based around things that are expected. You know, you want things to come in, you want an expected thing on the other side. It's kind of like a production line, but we all know that real life doesn't work like that. If anything, things tend to be unexpected. Things tend to change rather rapidly. So that structure is limiting. It's very limiting, particularly if you want something where you've got surprises. The thing is, like most of the time actually all the time, we're really working with people, and people are surprising. They're enigmatic, they're mercurial, they change. So it doesn't make sense that we're sitting with that structure. The structure on the right makes a lot more sense, more dynamic. Got this aspect of fluidity. I mean, human systems are fluid. We are dynamic. We do change our minds, and we are influenced by other people. So shouldn't we want a system that can flex and contract and maybe break and reform? Wouldn't that be a lot better? The things that I see, the questions that tend to pop up looking at these two options, the first one with that managed thing is, how can I replicate this model? So I've got something that kind of works. Now, how do I make that thing work in other spaces? But yet again, there you run into a problem. No team is the same. Teams are different. Teams are comprised of different people. They have different dynamics. They work differently. So just trying to stamp down a model over teams just doesn't work at all. You tend to try and force people into a structure that they just don't fit. And that's not exactly where we want to go. The other question that I find very amusing is, like, you know, who do I report to and who reports to me? Quite honestly, I don't care. You know, I don't care who I report to. I care more about who am I working with, who can I learn from, who can learn from me, what knowledge do I bring to the table, what skills do I bring to the table, and how can I fill in other people's blank spots? I mean, when I started my career, I really wanted to become really good at absolutely everything, and it didn't take long to realize that that's really tiring. You know, you just become mediocre in a whole bunch of things. I'd rather become exceptional in one or two things and then rely on my teammates to cover the blank spots, because they're going to be exceptional in one or two things. And maybe I can cover some of their blind spots. That's a much better model. You know, you actually end up doing things that you love, things that like blow your kilt up, that you just absolutely want to become better at, rather than being mediocre at everything. So in that stable side, I mean, the questions there are much more interesting. Like, so how do I create an environment where success for my team becomes inevitable? So immediately, you're not looking at a management mindset there. You're looking at a support mindset. You're looking at, how do I create an environment where I can liberate everyone that works in that space? How can they become the best versions of themselves? And how can the team become the best version of itself? Which leads to another question, is like, what role do I need to play? So I found in a lot of organizations, they really want to put people in these neat little boxes. So they go, well, so you're a project manager, so you fit in this project management box, and that's where you will live and die, and for God's sake, don't open up the lid. Hopefully they'll put some air holes in there, otherwise you're in deep shit. But people aren't like that. People aren't like, they don't fit so neatly into these boxes. So I look at myself, and like the label I've got at the moment is Enterprise Agile Coach. Wow, whatever the hell that means. But I'm not just a coach. I can also be a scrum master. I'm a writer. I'm a facilitator. I'm a trainer. So there's a whole bunch of different roles that I can play. And depending on what the team wants, I should be able to move fluidly between those roles to fill in the blanks, fill in the blind spots within the team as the team best needs it. So you start to see that structure, that stable structure, is a structure that flexes and moves, and it morphs, and it flows. It's a very much more exciting structure to be in. And if you take a look at the possible feedback loops within the stable structure, within the network structure, you've got an absolute multitude of feedback loops that can be created and reconstituted, and like that really creates a very, very exciting flow of information. The other thing that I realized when I put the slide together, and this is thanks to the team I'm working with, because they question everything, they poke at things, and they ask. And this very good friend of mine, Jacques, he actually asked the question, well, in these two structures, where do you see the client? And typically on this structure, you see the client outside of the structure. That person is somewhere out there. But in the network side, that client could be embedded. The client could be threaded through that network. It's like another network overlaying the network that you've already created, which creates even more feedback loops, which is actually really, really exciting. Because if you're thinking about agility and you're looking at how do we pivot fast in a very volatile environment, is like we need that feedback as fast as possible. So how about creating a network for them inside our network? So coming back to those deep hierarchies, and like these are lessons that I've learned quite painfully in some cases. So hierarchies create silos and ladders. People create their little fiefdoms, their little kingdoms. This is mine. So I've reached an exec level, and everyone in my structure is mine. They're all my resources. So I don't take lightly to that. I was actually sitting in a meeting where one senior manager referred to people in his structure as inventory. I was like, dude, seriously, you've got some serious psychoses happening there. I think you need medication. Yeah. And it creates these artificial structures that information just doesn't flow through. So if your organization is big enough and it's got enough silos, work tends to come in and it tends to splinter out through a silo and then get reconstituted and then splinter through another silo, and then somehow by the grace of God and luck and whatever, you get something that looks like value on the other side. This is not good at all. There's so many points of possible failure there. The other thing it creates is ladders. So people, they decide, well, the only way I can actually progress somewhere here is to become a senior whatever I am. So God forbid anyone ever says, I can become a senior enterprise agile coach. I will just probably vomit. It's not what I want. It just doesn't make any sense. It indicates that I'm climbing some sort of silly ladder. And information doesn't flow up or down a rigid hierarchy very well at all. So there's massive problems here. An example, so where I work, we've got a number of buildings, a number of campuses. So you tend to be walking between buildings a lot when you're moving from meeting to meeting or from a session to another session, or for coffee, like I do. So I drink a lot of coffee. It's amazing I haven't spontaneously combusted. So I'm walking down for a cup of coffee, and I walk past this little group of guys, and they're having a smoke. And I hear the one guy saying, he's just been promoted to architect. So he's an architect. And the next thing I hear, this is like one thing that coaches do. We kind of walk around and listen to everything. We get like spies. So anyway, I listen to this, and the guy goes, well, I've just been promoted to architect, but now I have hit the ceiling. I have nowhere to go. And I was about to go, dude, seriously, well, you're doing it wrong. But this is a real problem. So you've got a deep hierarchy. People climb up the hierarchy, and eventually they're going to reach the top of their ladder. And that's seriously problematic because where do you go from there? So you're can you imagine standing on the top rung of your ladder I mean, that sounds terrifying. I've got a problem with heights. So, I mean, that just sounds absolutely terrible. And nowhere to go. How limiting is that? So I was thinking, well, this is terrible. What you've done as a leader, as a person who has been promoted up through this hierarchy, what you've done is you've taken all your knowledge and all your skill and everything that you could give to your team, and you've placed yourself in the most sparsely populated point of your hierarchy. You are now a network of one. This is a real problem. So unless you've got like a personality disorder or something like that, you've got no one to bounce ideas off. And if you do have a serious personality disorder and you are bouncing the ideas off yourself, people are going to avoid you, and it's an ugly place to be. At the bottom of that is the most densely populated part of that network. That's where you want to live. So you want to bring that wealth of knowledge, and you want to embed yourself in a rich network of people that can learn from you. And the beauty of that is you will learn from them. One of the things that I learned very, very quickly in my career is that you can learn from absolutely everyone. Everyone from the CEO, and I'm privileged enough to actually work right through the entire stack at our bank. So I have interactions with our CEO all the way down to people who have, all they do is they take your coffee mug off your desk and give you a smile. And if you think about that, even that is a lesson. For someone with such a seemingly simple job that takes the time just to smile and make your day better, that is something that you can learn, and you can take that smile and pass it on to someone else. I realize this is not the way to go. So thinking about that, which space would that person rather be in? Climbing up that ladder, standing on the top rung and going, well, I've got nowhere to go. I've hit the ceiling. What do I do? Or would it be a better space to be embedded in that rich network with people that you can learn from? So the lesson that I learned really quickly, so when I started my career back in the late Cretaceous period, I'm not going to date myself, it's like 150 million years ago, I started off as an assembler programmer, and I was the best assembler programmer on the face of the planet. You guys don't believe me. I was. Seriously, I was an arrogant little shit. I thought I was the best thing that ever happened to programming ever. And I got the opportunity to take up a job at Southwestern Electricity in Wales. And the warning bell should have rang, because I got the job after about a 45-minute interview, like almost immediately. It was like interview finished, and I got the job offer like literally 5 minutes later. I thought at the time that was because I was so good that these guys in England must have heard of me. That's how good I am. I got to Southwestern Electricity and realized within the first day that at best I was the second best assembler programmer on the face of the planet, because the dude that I was replacing, he was definitely the best, because I had no clue what the hell he had written there. At that point, I was willing to ask anyone for help. I was running around the building going, do you guys know anything about assembler? No, I'm sorry, I make tea. Would you like a cup of tea? Yes, thank you. Like a beer as well. It took me 6 months to unravel this guy's code. The lessons that I learned there: one, the best thing that one developer can give to another developer is easily maintainable code. And the second thing is absolute, utter humility. Like, I can learn from absolutely everyone, and I am definitely not the best assembler programmer on the face of the planet. Very, very valuable lesson, and I'm very lucky to have learned that very early in my career. Okay, so coming to that provocative turn things around revolution thing. So revolution, from revolutio to turn around. So if you take a look at that hierarchy, that's what many of our organizations are facing. So as a leader within that hierarchy, what you can do, like you can't turn the entire organization around, but what you can do in your space is turn your space around. So as a leader, you're not at the top of that structure. You're not standing on the top of a ladder. You're not going, I've hit the ceiling and I've got nowhere to go. As a leader, you're the base of that structure. You're the support. You're the foundation of it. And everything that gets built above you. You're looking at your team and looking at, how can I support you? How can I create an environment where you can be absolutely superb and be the best that you can be? That's where you need to be, at the base. Now, like I say, you can't do that with an entire organization, but you absolutely can do it with your team. And the beauty of that is when people see how wonderful and how exciting that situation can be and how absolutely dynamic and beautiful that situation can be, or that team structure, they will want a piece of that. And they'll want to emulate it, and they want to take it on. The next thing, I've bumped into this concept a lot around agile fundamentals, where they talk about T people. So every person has got a deep specialist skill and then a broad understanding of all the other skills within the team. So I thought about that, and I thought, well, actually, that's something we can turn around as well. So how about we turn that upside down? We start looking at building people with a strong foundation. So build people with a strong foundation of, the processes that your team has. Broad understanding, strong focus on the role knowledge within the team. So as a developer, I should be able to work very closely with my test analysts, my business analysts, with business people, with everyone to actually get that broad, solid foundation. And then from that broad foundation, build up that specialist skill. So turn it upside down, and build from a very strong foundation of knowledge. The other thing I was thinking about is taking teams and the whole concept of teams and turning that absolutely upside down as well. Start thinking about creating these little autonomous mobs. So Woody Zuel's got some really amazing stuff around mobbing around single pieces of work. So how about taking small autonomous little pieces of those larger teams, constituting them together, people that want to work together, people that really they've got this passion to work together and share ideas, and create these long-standing mini-mobs, and then create clusters of those mini-mobs. So create these little molecules, atomic structures. That could be something really exciting. So you get something that's quite dynamic, but also has tenure, so people can actually work together, learn how to work with each other. So coming on to leadership. So, I've touched on a lot of the things about leadership already, but I was going to just highlight some of the concepts that I've seen that are really, really blow my hair back. The first one, this is Gil Evans. I was watching a tribute to Sting, and this quote came up, and I immediately, excuse the pun, but it struck a chord with me. In music, there's no such thing as a wrong note. It's the note that follows that determines whether the first one is wrong or not. And this is actually basically what leaders face in many occasions. You have to make a decision, you have to make a call, you have to give an answer, and you're absolutely not sure what's going to happen next. What happens next determines whether your decision, your answer, your intervention was right or not. And as a leader, you've just got to take that. You've just got to do it. You've got to play the note and hope that the next note works. And if it doesn't, well, let's play the next note, but we do it together. The leaders don't have to have all the answers. That's impossible. That's why we have teams. But they do have to have an answer. And even if that answer is, I don't know. The beauty of having that answer, I don't know, it's liberating and empowering at the same time. You liberate yourself, and you empower the person that you say, I don't know. I don't know too. I don't know, but let's find out together. That is incredibly powerful. That really binds teams together. So I think in many cases, leaders just have to understand that, it's absolutely impossible that you know everything. You don't need to know everything. You need to empower your teams. You need to work with them. Give them the opportunity to teach you. Like I said, that is incredibly liberating. Yeah, I read a really interesting book, and there's probably a lot of the concepts in there form the basis of things that I'm chatting about today. This is Jocko Willink. He's a Navy SEAL, and he scares the living hell out of me. Yeah, he's quite an intimidating character. And when you see him in real life, he's about yo-high and about the same width. He's a very, very big man. But he's also one of the most amazing leaders that I've encountered. One of the things here, and this thing really stuck with me, is that leaders must own everything in their world. There's no one else to blame. He told a story about when he was on a tour in Ramadi in Iraq, where there was a case of friendly fire. One of the SEAL squads ended up shooting friendly Iraqi soldiers. Now, the SEALs don't take lightly to this at all. This is something that is incredibly serious and something that they train to avoid at all costs. So there was an inquisition, and the investigating officer asked Jocko Willink to find out who was to blame. who was to blame for this case of friendly fire. So Jocko Willink got his entire squad, his entire platoon, into a room with the investigating officer. And he asked the question. He said, guys, there was a case of friendly fire. People got killed. Who's to blame? Who's to blame? And one of the squad leaders stood up and he said, I'm to blame. I led the squad. They were my men. I'm to blame. Jocko Willink told him to sit down. He says, no, you're not to blame. Who's to blame? One of the other SEALs stood up and he said, I'm to blame. I fired the first shot. If I hadn't fired the first shot, other people wouldn't have fired that shot. People wouldn't have died. Jocko Willink told him to sit down. He went again and again asking who was to blame, and different people in his platoon stood up and gave reasons why they were to blame. And eventually he said, none of you are to blame. I'm to blame. I'm your leader. And he said that, and he took all the responsibility for that, knowing full well it could end his career. That is bravery. That is leadership. And I read that and I got goosebumps. I was like, wow. You know, in a corporate environment, you know, we will never face decisions of that magnitude. But thinking about the principle behind that, the willingness to take up that much responsibility for the people in your charge is absolutely awe-inspiring. So I thought about, well, you know, what do we face like in a transformative environment? And the aspects there I saw were fluency and fluidity. So fluency I see as the creation of flow, so the seamless delivery of value. This is difficult sometimes because particularly if you're looking at traditional structures, the structures don't allow for flow. So we actually have to start dismantling these things. And dismantling those structures are going to make people uncomfortable. Yeah? As a leader, you can't back away from that. You are going to make people uncomfortable. You need to actually make hard decisions and make them. Just make them. No one else is going to make them. The other thing is the ability to adapt and transform into something new. So we're facing environments that are increasingly more volatile. Then we need to pivot. We have got people out there, competitors out there that we don't even know exist. How do we create an environment where we can pivot quickly? Because then the people that, or the competitors that we see, that we don't see, are the ones that are going to hurt us the most. Just looking at time here, so I'm going to have to just speed up a little bit. So leaders must be humble but not passive. Leaders must lead, but they must almost follow. Oh, they must. Big words. Must. Must is a big word, and I'm struggling with it today. Okay, leaders must lead, but they must also be able to follow. So that's a concept, also a SEAL concept, where they've got the concept of who can lead will lead. So it's a very, very powerful lesson for a leader is when to let go. Let go of leadership and allow someone else to lead. It's an incredible opportunity to learn. And the thing about that is, how do you let go? If this is a very, very important thing to you, so you've really worked hard to get this position of leadership, and you want to let go, you feel like you're going to drop it. But if you let go, as far as support, this is much more powerful. Okay. Trust. So, Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. I'm going to turn that upside down as well. So basically, he was saying that everything builds off trust. If you don't have trust, you can just throw the rest away. One of the lessons I've learned here, so I've got three children. I've been a single parent for well over 10 years, and I've built up an amazing amount of trust with my children. It's uncomfortable. Trust is one of those really uncomfortable things, but if you've earned it, deal with the discomfort. I'll give you an example. So I'm sitting on the couch, and my 14-year-old boy walks into the room, and he goes, "Dad, have you ever done acid?" I'm like, "Dude, seriously?" That freaked me out. It freaked me out. But you know what? He trusted me enough to ask me that question. I earned that trust. So I will endure the discomfort because I earned that trust. My daughter as well, 23-year-old daughter. Wow. Sometimes I'm going, "Kim, I'm your dad?" Oh, really, I'm going to stick my fingers in my ears. No. I earned the trust. So I'm going to have to deal with the discomfort. Yeah. And if you do that with your teams, just deal with it. If they trust you, they're going to be telling you some things that are really going to make you go, wow. But it's earned. Okay. Curiosity and culture. So Fridtjof Nansen, I actually found this guy totally by accident. It was Movember. Do you guys do Movember? You grow a mustache for testicular cancer. So I found him with a really cool mustache. I can never do a mustache like that. And that was a fantastic quote. The difficult takes time, the impossible takes a little bit longer. We came across this story where a guy was walking in India, and he walked into a village, and there was this big 4-ton elephant, and it was attached to this little rope with a stick in the ground. And he couldn't understand why the elephant was just standing there. So he went to the elephant minder, and he said, look here, what's with the elephant? It's like a little piece of string and a little stick in the ground. Why doesn't it just walk off? And the guy said, well, actually, what we do is when the elephant is a calf, we tie it to the stick in the ground. And it believes it can't pull it out. So even when it's now a 4-ton elephant, it does not believe that it can pull the little stick out of the ground. So your reality is a reflection of your strongest belief. As a leader, you need to find those sticks and you need to pull them the hell out of the ground. Or if you can't pull them out of the ground, at least test them. And at least show other people that they can test them. Test every stick and every little string around your leg. Because who knows, maybe you are a 4-ton elephant and you can just pull it out of the ground and you can move on. A lot of organizations are hampered and hamstrung by this idea. I found this, which is amazing. This is the Isujingu Shrine in Japan. It's 1,300 years old, and every 20 years, the villagers actually destroy it. They break it down to the ground, and they rebuild it. It's absolutely amazing. They do this to invigorate just the culture and the community and like the religious aspect and spiritual bonds behind that. And I found that was absolutely amazing. And like what we actually should do, we've got a lot of shrines in our organizations that actually just need to be pulled down and rebuilt into something fresh. So don't be afraid to tear down those learned behaviors, to rebuild and build something new, set up new neural pathways. It's very, very important. Challenge the things. Okay, I've got a few minutes left. And I'm going to come to this very important ingredient. So I found this quote, and I'm sure you guys have seen it before. Lighthouses don't go running around looking for ships to save. They just stand there shining. And that's pretty much what leaders do. You don't run around looking for opportunities to lead. You lead. You lead. You're there. You shine by your example. I'm going to give you a quick story. So there was a stone cutter, and he walks into a village. It's hot. He's just been cutting stone, and he's really upset about his lot in life. And as he walks into the village, he walks past this beautiful mansion. And he looks into the mansion, and there's a rich man lying on these pillows, and he's being fed like grapes and fruit by his servants. And he goes, I really wish I was that rich man, because then my life would be so much better. And in the flash of an eye, he is the rich man. And he's lying on these pillows, and he's looking at these beautiful gardens, and he's like, wow, this is amazing. And as he looks out the gate, he watches people walk past, and they look into his house, and he can see these looks of envy, and like, oh, you're lying in this opulence and this wealth. And he goes, this is horrible. This makes me feel bad. And as he's feeling that, he watches a very important politician come past in a carriage, and people are moving out the way. And he goes, wait a minute, if I was the politician, my life would be amazing because people would respect me. And he becomes the politician, and he's in the carriage, and the people are moving out of his way. But as they move out of his way, you can see this look of disdain, and they're saying, well, why must I move out the way? You're supposed to be our leader. You're supposed to be our servant. We elected you. What is this? And he's like, nah, this doesn't feel good. But he feels the sun on his face, and he goes, wait a minute. If I was the sun, everyone would love me. The sun is beautiful. And he becomes the sun. And as he's looking down at the earth, he sees these dry patches and this drought, and people are looking up at him, waiting for rain. And he goes, oh, maybe if I was rain. And he becomes this massive cloud, and he starts raining, and he brings a flood and washes away a village, and people curse him. And he goes, but if I was the wind would blow the clouds away. And he becomes the wind, and he's blowing across the land. He becomes a massive typhoon, and he wrecks villages, and he kills people, and people curse him, and this is horrible. And eventually, he comes up against this massive thing, this huge, huge thing, and he goes, wow, this is a mountain. If I was a mountain, that would be cool. I'd be eternal. I'm this massive thing that can look over and lord over the entire earth. And he becomes a mountain. And while he's there, in all his majesty, he hears this little ding, 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 and he looks down, and there's a stonecutter. Lesson. Authenticity. Okay. No one has the same set of quirks, bullshit, hang-ups, dreams. No one has made the same mistakes, learned the same lessons, had the same fears, observation, pain, disappointment. No one has had the same love that you have. No one can be a better you than you can. Like that, I think, is probably one of the best lessons that I've learned, is just be authentically you. It's the best gift you could ever give to your team as a leader. Just be you, because no one else can do that better. So just final thoughts. Don't be afraid to dismantle and rebuild. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to trust and let go. Don't be afraid to follow. It's your best learning experience. Don't be afraid of different points of view. It is an incredible learning experience and incredibly humbling. And don't be afraid to be authentically you. Never apologize for being you. I found this quote and I absolutely love it. Life is too short for all the mistakes I need to make. Okay. I want to thank you guys for this incredible experience. Thank you for enduring me. Thank you. I hope to be back sometime. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you very much. And as you know, we have the Q&A session.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot to ask, because it was a really inspiring speech. So let's dive into the questions. So the first one, what do you think about the scaled agile framework? How can we make it work?
Wow. Yeah, scaled agile framework. I think it is a collection of really good ideas. I think Dean Leffingwell is an amazing methodologist. Does it solve everyone's problems? No. Like I say, it's a really good collection of ideas. Things that I love about it is the concept of value streams. I think it needs to be adapted slightly for each different environment. I think the deeper, the more levels you put into SAFe, the more problematic it's going to be. So yet again, I think err on the side of simplicity. Look at creating teams of teams. So those little atomic structures. Look at creating value streams and create maybe spaces where you can get single piece flow. This would be like what I would take out of the scaled agile framework.
Yeah. Okay. Let us be a bit more specific. What about the salaries?
Okay.
Who is to decide in dynamic environments?
Okay. Yeah. So dynamic environment. So how much are you worth? Who's there to decide that? Is it a problem is it a problem sharing your salary with other people? I think transparency and visibility around that is really important. I think we need to let go of some of that stuff. How about your team determines how much you earn? Could be scary. I'm willing to try something like that. I think this is one of the things we need to start thinking about. How do we assess teams and people and salaries differently? I think the traditional way is it's not good enough.
But it's just, sorry to oppose, but it's not only about transparency, but who's going to say this is, I don't know, that much?
Okay. Well, the thing about that, if you think about a leader in that environment, you're supporting an environment where you're creating. I would want to create an environment which is totally transparent and make all the salaries absolutely transparent, and we decide together. So we're going to have a budget. How do we spend that budget? How do we spend it in the best way possible? And I think there's definitely things to experiment there. I don't think there's a definite answer. I think it could work very differently in different spaces.
But we shouldn't be afraid of,
No.
tearing down these kind of myths and taboos.
No, absolutely. I think if we can replace fears with curiosity and experiments, that'd be great. So I mean, don't try and change the entire salary structure of your whole organization. Maybe change it in one space first. See what works.
Okay. Yeah. In some cultures, the boss is the boss. Here, hierarchy is part of the society. How do you deal with these people in your ideal words?
Oh, wow. It's very difficult. I mean, like people who want to be the boss. Why do they want to be the boss? I think in some cases, a mentor of mine, he went and said, change your company or change your company, which is quite interesting. So either change your organization to a point where that type of person won't want to be in that environment. They'll be the best version of themselves somewhere else. That's okay. Yeah, so I mean, cultures. I mean, if you take a look at the South African culture, fiercely patriarchal. We have major problems with diversity in terms of race and women. I think we are woefully behind in getting women into positions of leadership. And I think we need to actually just do it. If you think about exec teams are more powerful if they're more diverse, if they've got women and people of different races, people of different creeds. You just get a much richer idea bed.
Yeah. Okay, you shared some books with us. What is your favorite on this topic?
Wow. Greg McKeown, he wrote a book called Essentialism. That's an amazing book. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink is amazing. And then just some esoteric stuff, like Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, I think is absolutely amazing. The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying is incredible wealth of knowledge. Yeah. So
speaking of favorite, that's one.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing more books with us. And let's have a last question. Have you seen good examples of agile engineering working with a more rigid product management?
Yeah. I think you'll. If you've got any form of rigid structure within your environment, you're going to find that you're going to reach a ceiling very quickly as far as agility is concerned. So I would challenge any sort of rigid structure. Challenge it. It's got to prove its value. You can't just have a rigid structure for the sake of having a rigid structure. I think in most cases where I've seen agility work really well, those rigid structures have been systematically dismantled over time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Stephen, thank you very much for coming here. Also, please take your cup,
awesome,
or your face on the cup. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. Please give a big round of applause to Stephen.
Thank you.
Celebrating his first international speech.
Thank you.